Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Sales Scoop. This is a live show for the founders and senior leaders of technology businesses who want to improve how they sell. My name's Alistair Cole. I'm a computer science and AI graduate, an ex-software engineer with 2 decades experience in sales and marketing. And I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by Elle Connolly, brand voice expert and content strategist, as well as copywriter. Hello, Elle. Tell us a little bit about you and your journey to here and 23 Wise Words. Go on, introduce yourself for us.
So I'm Elle from 23 Wise Words. So I started off doing working in creative agencies and lots of kind of project management and copywriting in agency land, and then started my own agency about 10 years ago. Freelance copywriting. Started on the content side, and my background's in psychology. So I did psychology at university, and as I was kind of writing content, which back in those days was lots of blogs and things, everybody just wanted blogs. I started to realize how much psychology was involved in marketing and in content writing, and kind of moved over to the copywriting side. So lots of kind of point of sale conversion copy and bringing in that behavioral psychology into what I do. And then more recently have kind of evolved into the brand voice side as well. So combining that idea of, again, still bringing in the psychology side and the science into brand voice, and then executing it into copy. I think there's a real gap there where there's a lot of kind of brand voice or brand strategists, and then there's copywriters, and there's not that many people that combine the two. And I think it's such a way of bringing the brand voice to life and making it into a secret weapon is when you can actually take what's written in that PDF or that Google folder and actually convert it into actual words and copy that work in the wild.
Yeah, I think you're somebody who understands the two sides, the art and the science. Yeah. For a lot of our audience, everybody's selling. It's really hard to stand out. How do you combine those two, the kind of psychology and the behavioral science and the copywriting skills? How do you combine that to help a firm stand out and be different?
Yeah. So I think standing out is, especially in tech land, it can be quite difficult because people kind of seem to default to this tech voice, which we all kind of know of, that kind of SaaS voice, that it's warm and it's friendly and helpful and conversational, which is all great. We like that in brand voices, but differentiating yourself can be hard. And if we look at the kind of big tech companies like Apple, for example, will differentiate themselves by being really minimalist, very simple, their headlines are kind of never really more than 5 words long. And that's reflected from what's in their product. Their product is very minimalist. Their product is very simplistic in how it looks, how it's packaged, all that stuff. So I think in order to stand out, it's important to take the brand values and bring them out in the voice. And we see like Duolingo do that really well, where their brand is very much about gamification and play. And so therefore their brand voice is very playful. So I think that can help you stand out, like kind of going back to what were those brand values? Why did we start? What's our mission? What are our values? And bringing that into the brand voice can be a good way of starting to stand out. And then there's other ways of kind of weaving things in. Like I'm very big on weaving in the customer conversations that we're hearing, so voice of customer, and closing that empathy gap between what your customers or clients are saying and what your brand is saying. How can we reflect what they're saying in your words as well? So a lot of businesses, there's a big, what we call the empathy gap there, where businesses are talking about themselves, not using the language that actually their customers are using. So that's a really good way of kind of standing out as well, so that your customers can see their words reflected in your brand voice.
I absolutely love that. So how did the mechanics of that work? If I was a founder or senior leader and I was thinking that sounds amazing, because obviously that's a differentiator because it is our real customers.
Yeah.
What are the steps that you take in order to get the customer's voice onto the page?
Yeah. So there's the human side of it, which we've done for many, many years, which I still do now, which is interviewing. So if I start working with a new client, I would then interview their customers if we can. So really kind of speaking to them, asking questions, story-based questions, getting those anecdotes out of them. Then you can go and look through review sites. So if you're a tech company who is on Trustpilot, is on G2, all those kind of review sites, scraping all of those kind of comments and things, quotes, you've got sales calls you're doing, all the kind of discovery calls that your sales team are doing with potential customers and new customers. There's loads of places, the list goes on, and we can go around and manually, which I've done for years, manually kind of go in and take all that really good stuff, quotes, words, things people are saying, and creating a voice of customer database, a bank. The good thing is now is that as technology moves on and we're now going to start using the AI word. We're 12 minutes, 13 minutes in, and we haven't said AI yet, but here we are. AI can actually do a great job of doing this for you. I still think the human element comes in from the interview side. I would still want to kind of do those face-to-face and actually speaking to people. But in terms of real time keeping up with customer conversations, we can set up AI agents that are constantly looking through Reddit, are constantly looking through Facebook groups, if that's where your audience is, are constantly looking through the transcripts of your sales call, and constantly keeping that real-time updated voice of customer stuff. So it's actually loads easier to keep up with nowadays. And then the trick is then translating what you get into actually words and brand voice.
Yeah, and that's a bit that no agent right now is going to be able to do, right?
Yeah. I mean, they can categorize it really well. So they can kind of look out for a pain point. They can look out for an objection or a desire, and they can categorize those for you. But at the moment, they're not great at then, translating that into copy that actually sounds good and uses that psychology and uses the kind of behavioral science as well. It can all be trained, but just connecting those two dots aren't quite there at the moment. Yeah,
awesome. And I'd love to chat a little bit more about the AI and the tech, but actually it's the psychology piece that I think is most interesting, is the behavioral economics, the nudging and the right language. And it makes sense to me that would be able to actually make the difference between someone being a prospect and being a buyer. So what have you got any thoughts or tips on how that kind of brand voice and words, how that actually influences conversion rates or sales performance?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that it's really important to differentiate is when I talk about brand voice, I'm talking about, yes, the tone of voice, yes, the personality traits, but also the messages, the brand messages, the unique standpoint that your business has. So for me, brand voice does encapsulate all those things. And therefore, that's how I kind of translate it into the copy side as well. So for me, your brand voice and your copy is intertwined, whereas some people will talk about tone of voice, which is slightly different in that it's just a section of the brand voice. So the tone of voice is maybe that we talk very directly, or we are very welcoming in our tone, like Airbnb, for example. Whereas when I talk about brand voice, I'm talking about the messages as well, and the brand messages, and the unique standpoint, what you stand for in your industry. So from that respect, it becomes easier to measure, because we are actually taking that brand voice and using it in copy, which then is very easy. It's got very metrics that we can measure, click-through rates, engagement rates, all that kind of stuff. So if I had done a brand voice refresh, I would be looking at those metrics, because I've translated it into copy as well. It's very hard to measure if you're just looking at a PDF and it's just a kind of tone of voice PDF. How do we measure the ROI on that? But from brand voice and copywriting, we can kind of look at, okay, so where are we in the customer journey here? Have we reflected this brand voice in a LinkedIn post, for example, where the customer is maybe quite at the top of the funnel? Therefore, I'd be looking for more engagement. Okay, are they engaging more than the posts in this new brand voice than they were 2 months ago when we weren't using this brand voice? If they're further down in the journey, so if they're in your email list, for example, and you've translated this new brand voice into email sequences, then we can start looking at, okay, is the click-through rate better than it was? So there are real metrics we can measure because we're translating it into copy.
Yeah. Okay, that's fascinating. Thanks. I mean, I'm a big follower. I'm a subscriber of your YouTube channel at 23 Wise Words, and one of the things I love about this channel is like the just dripping with tips, right? And I've forgotten some of the ones that I've learned from you, but ones that stick in my mind are kind of copy on buttons and links and how they're associated and the psychology of choice. What you know, what are the best little things, or the things that people have fed back positively on, and those kind of tips that you drop, like practical tips?
So when occasionally I'll be asked by a client to do a kind of audit of, okay, we've got this, let's call it a landing page. We've got this landing page. It's not converting like we thought it would. What's the problem? As a copywriter, I would always start at the point of conversion and work backwards. So the point of conversion is the button. So that's really where the main bit of your psychology wants to be focused. So I start at the button and I work backwards. So the button copy itself should be written in the first person from the perspective of the reader. So you should be answering the question, I want to, or I want you to, on your button. So for an example, if we were doing if you were kind of a tech product that helped people count calories or lose weight or that kind of thing, or do exercise, your button copy might be, and you had, say, a landing page that was a kind of a PDF, 5 tips to lose belly fat, let's say. Your button copy would be lose belly fat. So they would be answering the question, I want to. Your button copy says lose belly fat. That's why they click the button. So it's always written in the perspective first person from the reader. And then we also put click triggers around the buttons. So that could be testimonials. It can be stats. It can be what's going to happen after you click. You'd be surprised how many people are scared of clicking buttons because they don't know what might happen next. So we put click triggers around the buttons, which are different kind of psychology triggers to help people feel more comfortable in clicking. So there's lots of psychology around buttons. And then I'd kind of work backwards then up the landing page to look at other points where conversion might not be happening, the headline and that kind of thing. So yeah, the buttons are very, very important.
I absolutely love that you start at the button and work backwards, right? Because that's the science part for me as a kind of technologist, that's where it should start. So that's delightful to hear, right? And which is not just, sounds good, is, full of alliteration and polysyllabic words, but it's like getting down to, is someone going to click this? Because that, you just want them to take the next action, right? It is just about that next action.
Yeah. And I'd like to, I suppose people kind of maybe thinking about the ethics side here. Okay, well, what are we trying to do some kind of evil tricks to make people click buttons they don't want to click? But what I always say is, by the point of somebody being at the button and thinking about clicking, the work that you've done to get them there, the content the touch points they've seen, the content they've read, all that stuff has kind of pre-qualified them to the point where they are the right person. Hopefully, if they're not, then the job beforehand hasn't been right. So we're not kind of coercing somebody to click a button and do something they don't want to do. At this point, they know they're the right person. They know they have a problem that you can solve. They're just not sure whether it's that fight or flight thing in their brain. Shall I click or shall I click? So we're just helping them encourage to solve a problem for themselves.
Yeah, I loved that idea that you might underneath the button have explaining what comes next, right? And click or click, lose belly fat, and all you have to do is fill out the next form on the next page or something. And I hear you about the ethics. I think for, we've all been on those sites where they'll bury the cancellation section, right, at the end of the east wing, right, down the stairs. That's more worrying for me, that kind of dark UX. I mean, still the copy is often like, are you really sure, because you're going to lose these benefits, which is fair enough. But no, there's no it's gentle nudging, right, rather than coercion. So that's great. And we talked a little bit about AI and weaving that in. And your story about the getting the customer insights and doing that deep research by hand, obviously that can be kind of supported by AI. But how are you using tools to harness or increase your capacity or the quality or for your clients? How are you using AI as a kind of copywriter and brand voice strategist in your day-to-day?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I find using AI to write takes longer than if I write it myself, just because that's my job. That's what I've been doing for years and years and years. And so I've kind of learned the craft enough to be able to do it quite quickly. But I can 100% see how, for somebody whose copywriting is not what they want to be doing for a start in their business and what they're good at in their business, let's use this tool to help. The way I would use it, yes, definitely, I'm starting to use it more and more for the voice of customer side and kind of harnessing that technology because I couldn't sit for 20 hours a week scrolling through all the different sites myself for all my clients. It's just, that's one of the use cases that just is amazing. Let's harness that. So definitely for the voice of customer stuff. Sometimes it can be good for structuring first drafts. I never use it for first drafts because I always find once you've got a draft in front of you, it's really hard to then take a step back and think about how else it could have been written or how it could be written better, because you've got something there. So for me, the whole blank page, getting rid of the blank page, isn't useful. Whereas I know for other people, it might be having that kind of structure there. So I always write the first draft myself. And then what I might do is use it as an editing prompt, to say, okay, let's look at this from a editor's point of view. How might we change the sentence structure? Is there anything grammatically that we could make more succinct? It's quite good at that kind of thing. And then I'll see what it comes back with, compare it against my own and make a judgment call. So I do use it as a kind of co-worker. And sometimes I'll kind of use it and give me 20 headline ideas, just because I want to see loads and loads and loads of rubbish ones so that I can piece together and maybe come up with something that really works, rather than sitting and kind of brain dumping myself. So I kind of use it as a co-worker, but I can see why it's very helpful for people that don't want to or like writing.
Yeah, like you, it's a kind of sparring partner, I think, copywriting for me. And actually, I use on both the mobile and the desktop, I use the voice interaction a lot, and I'll just have a chat and then stop it, and almost like a kind of exploration of a new topic and a new idea, just to get my brain going, and then the kind of the real work happens somewhere else. You've talked about a lot about how being, forgetful is fatal, and how beige is bad, right? And how most brands are beige. Because I know a lot of the clients that we work with and people we talk to, brand voice is something that they would say later, right? Later.
Yes.
But at the same time, they're struggling to get any sales because they sound and look exactly the same as everyone else. So why is beige? What's wrong with beige, and what do we do about it?
Yeah, so when I talk about beige and beige being fatal, there are two elements to it. The first is the fact that it's not memorable, like you've said. So, I mean, from a very basic recall point of view, if you want your brand to be top of mind when somebody needs what you're selling, you need to be memorable. They need to remember who you are. You need to stand out. So there's that side of it. And then there's the inconsistency side of it, which I think is worse. So there are studies, I think Forrester did a study recently about brand consistency, and found that revenue increased by 23% if a brand's voice was consistent. So there's kind of science to back this up, because inconsistency leads to mistrust. And we know that if somebody doesn't trust a brand, it's very hard to get them to kind of use you, buy from you. So inconsistency, I think, is the major issue for a lot of tech businesses, and a lot of tech businesses that are growing quickly. It's like, how do we keep that consistency across all the different people that need to be writing for us? And that's why coming back to a really kind of strong brand voice works. And that's why I always say it's important to incorporate your brand values in your brand voice, because it gives you that benchmark. I think a lot of tech businesses, when they're first starting out, the kind of founder becomes the de facto brand voice. So you kind of find that because they, started things, they were writing things to start with, they're maybe signing off on most of it until you're really scaling. So it almost, the brand voice becomes their voice. But that doesn't scale, and that's not possible when there's a few people in your team that are all writing different things. So I think a good way of kind of keeping that founder energy in the brand voice is by just using the brand values, because it's unlikely that the brand values don't reflect that. The reason the founder started the business in the first place. So they can be a good benchmark for keeping things consistent, and weaving those into the brand voice is really important.
Yeah, and those, when you talk about inconsistency, it makes me think about past and clients we've had where it's like, oh, it's Monday, we've got to get something out, right, to keep feeding the content machine, and it's all last minute. And because it's last minute and that work hasn't been done, the cornerstone work, it's inconsistent because it might be a different person or a different feel or a different channel, right? It's social media, not email. So it's that kind of structure, the rigor of having the brand voice defined, and then it's so much easier. It's an absolute delight to take that and what's been, as long as it's organized. So I hear you on that organization. And the truth is that expectations are like unbelievably high. 87% of B2B buyers expect to be delighted before and after purchase. So expectations sky high, and 60%, 61% of buyers, they don't want any reps at all. They prefer an overall rep-free buying experience. So your sales content, your sales collateral, it's going to live on your website. It's going to be in your emails. It's going to be in all that self-service areas, right? Not with salespeople. So the quality it has to be, unbeige and ready to be received. So expectation is really high. Look, Elle, that's fantastic. Thank you. Some really delicious nuggets there. Where should people go to find out more?
Yeah, so I'm at 23 Wise Words, so the number 23. That's my website. On LinkedIn, Elle Connolly. I think I'm as LinkedIn. I'm just thinking my full name or not. Yes. Yeah, that's the website. So yeah, that's probably the best place to go and find out a bit more about what I do.
Yeah, or you can find Elle on LinkedIn where you are right now. I'm on LinkedIn as well. In terms of putting great content out there, we've taken the exciting decision to make our pricing 100% transparent. So that's out there on our website. If you'd like to see any of our prices, you can get them all now. And if you're interested in any of our previous shows, you can head over to the Sales Group and grab them, or watch us back, me and Elle. Delightful to have you on. Thanks, Elle, for your time and insights. Is there anything out there that's happening in the content world that you're excited about this week, or you'd like to leave with us as a parting gift?
Yeah,
no pressure.
Yeah. I think there's a lot going on out there at the moment, and we've talked about this, about the whole AI stuff, and I think a lot of businesses are kind of wondering how to deploy it in a way that feels authentic and it goes beyond using ChatGPT just to write a blog post. So there's lots of stuff going on there, and I'm happy to have a chat with anyone about how that could work for their business. So that's kind of one of the main things. But I think as an actionable thing, that if someone wants to go back into their business, all those sales calls and things, and looking at the transcripts, seeing if you can weave it into your copy.
Okay, well, yeah, like you say, there is an awful lot going on in this world, but I think the advancement of technology and all this AI stuff coming in, as we were saying ahead of the show, it does mean that the pinnacle of written words is even more valued by people, and I think we should, brand voice is a genuinely a killer sales weapon to differentiate yourself and crucially get people to click links, click buttons, and convert into buyers. So it's absolutely of the moment. So thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, bye Elle, bye everybody.
Bye bye.